Hey guys, you're watching VaulSC. Hope that you're having a good week. We are pretty much done with the Infinity TTS League Season 3. We have our top 10 winners. Here they are in all of their glory. Panda Beast Mode is our new champion. However, not everybody did as well, and if we go all the way down to the bottom, there were a few people who completed all of their games but didn't actually get any victories. Thanks to the new scoring system, you can sometimes pick up one tournament point if you either made it to 5 objective points but still lost, or if you kept the margin of victory to 2 or less. And we have 4 people who actually only ended up on 1 tournament point, did have a tough time in their games, probably a fair bit of bad luck. And I did promise that I'd give out some free coaching to people who didn't do so well, and we have one such person, that is donnybrooks from Idaho in the US, playing YuJing, who unfortunately didn't win any of his games, and I will be joining him now to do some YuJing coaching. So if you guys want to stick with us and watch through as we discuss YuJing and how we can improve, come with me. Let's go talk to Donny. Alright, buddy, here we are. Can you hear me all right? You there?
I'm here.
Oh, there we are. There we go. Let me just turn up your volume as well. Alrighty. Yeah, do you want to just tell me how your games went? I mean, have you already learned a few things? Would do things differently? How did it go? Just talk me through
it. So starting off the tournament, I played against Persian. And...
Oh yeah, he's very experienced, and he in fact did quite well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of frustrating to go, like, first game of the tournament, I just got destroyed. Like,
that happens to a lot of people in round 1.
I think before the end of the second turn, I was like, hey man, like, we can just call it. I think I had a little over 100 points left at that point. All my specialists were dead, so I had no chance, like no choice or no way to get points at that point for the tournament.
What was it that caused that though? I mean, was it the way you deployed, or were you just not really expecting what he'd do?
The way I deployed, not knowing some of the different arrows you can take, like lookout and stuff like that. And then he got into my back line, and he just walked around with the heavy shotgun and the boarding shotgun.
Yep.
And gunned me down.
So you were taking second turn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few things that you can do against his kind of faction where you keep a lot of guys in total cover, and you have a few expendable things which are there really just to slow them down, but we can talk about that a bit later. I'm just looking through the rounds now. So who did you get for round 2?
Round 2.
I'm just looking at it. It was Frozen Sun from Chicago playing Combined Army.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the map that we played on for that one.
So that's finish line, so it was the cargo ship area?
That one, I don't really remember too much.
Yeah, that's okay.
It wasn't super memorable. It wasn't like getting destroyed against Persian.
Yeah.
But I mean, I lost that one as well.
Were you playing generally the same lists throughout the event, or were you changing it up a lot every time?
Yeah, it was generally the same list. I was running the Celestia Guard with the 4 Guangxi, 2 Krakats, Sujian, and then I changed a little bit after that. I was taking the Pangolin, the Conren, and then
was there anything in his list that you remember from Combined Army that you found was a real struggle to deal with?
I think that one, just getting my distances and my facing was the big thing.
Right.
And then deployment, again, not deploying super well.
One thing that some people are doing in my tournaments is that when the map comes out, they're going and practicing on the map, and they're just putting a model in the spots that look really obvious for an HMG or a sniper, and they're actually literally measuring from that spot to various corners, and just getting a feel for what the range band's going to be. And everybody's in the same playing field, so there's no reason not to sort of abuse that kind of advantage. So next time, that could be a really good thing to go if you're having trouble with ranges. Similar thing with like templates as well. I mean, just measure 10.5 for the large template around different sort of areas, or move the template around can be useful. Going to the next one. So who did I give you? Tyrael. Unfortunately, that was Christmas time, and I think Tyrael. Did you end up playing him? Was it somebody else you faced instead?
Yeah, I ended up playing him. 5th, I think, just because of how everything kept breaking down. I think he was like the last game that I actually played.
Yeah.
He was super helpful. That was the one game I actually scored a tournament point, I think, because we ended up tying on objective points.
Oh, that was a draw, so that actually wasn't a win either way. Yeah, so that's where you got your point from. Every other game you got beat up, but that was the one game where it was a draw. Very good. Yeah, Tyrael also had a tough time this event, maybe because Star Martyr or he's just having bad luck. But I played against him earlier last year, and it was a really tough game.
Yeah, so I mean, he should have won our game. In terms of experience, he's way more experienced than I am, and he's a much better player. But he was helping me out with like. You can take like a long skill to move your entire first movement without generating AROs. I can't remember what that's called off the top of my head.
It's called a cautious movement.
Yeah, stuff like that. He was helping me just get better at the game.
Yeah,
and
that
resulted in him losing some of those objective points, which I was able to get. So he should have actually won that game, but he decided to help me out, and that was how I got the tie.
Great. And then in round 4, it was Castor. That guy's typically had some trouble, scheduling games. Did you end up playing him?
Yeah, him and I ended up playing. Super cool guy.
Cool.
He was also pretty helpful, and then he's helped me a little bit with painting, so that's not really the tournament, but he's super helpful. I ended up forfeiting that game because at the end of round 2, we were at like 5.5 hours.
Oh no.
And the way it stood, because that was
Supremacy. It's the castle map, so I guess he was holding on to the objectives at the time.
Yeah, so he had a majority of the objectives at the end of round 2, and he'd already completed his. Or no, we didn't have the missions to do. So yeah, he had the most of the quadrants at the end of round 2.
Okay, and he'd done his classifieds.
Yeah, so I didn't really feel like sitting around another 2 hours. So at that point, there was nothing I could do to get the quadrants back from him. And I think that just comes down to I don't play very aggressively.
Yeah.
In general.
Then there was Guybrush next. He was playing Corregidor, and that was an 8-3. And that was on the pink left map for one of my missions. So was that also quite a decisive game? Did you finish it?
Yeah, we ended up finishing that one. In that one, I actually ended up taking Yan Huo, the hyper rapid magnetic cannon guy, and I didn't use him. So that's 70 points right there that didn't get utilized. And then it all comes down to like
it is an inconsistent
I don't play aggressive
unit.
enough.
It's a model that I very rarely use, even in N3. Sometimes you just need the exact right matchup and table for it to be worth it, because otherwise, if he's not really getting his gun's worth. I did post a round 6 game. Are you interested in playing against Lord of Apathy? By the way, he's actually going to be doing a coaching session with me as well.
I'd totally be down. We were scheduled to play, was it last week or the week before that, something like that, and I just started college again these last 2 weeks, and I just got overwhelmed the day we were supposed to play, and so we just didn't end up playing. But I would play him.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. I've just started a new job this week, so that's why I'm less sort of involved in YouTube content and posting on Discord. And it's good that I started that right after the event finished as well. Okay, all right, let's move on. So I've just looked up the list that you sent me. So I'm just going to bring it up in front of me now. So this list, I presume that you considered the round 6 table that we made available for the top 10, and I said that I'd write like an OSS list for you to face. We won't play the actual game, but just as a simulation. So those were factors that you kept in mind when putting this together?
Yeah. I was watching your OSS review video as I was putting this list together.
Right.
To try and
see what you'd be up against. All right. Well, let's just go through it. I'll make some comments on what you've chosen here. Actually, before I do, I mean, what's the general idea? Do you have any particular game plan or strategy with this list? Is there any particular reason for the choices you've made?
So with this list specifically, pretty much everything is like the Celestial Guards and the Quang Shi. The Quang Shi is going to kind of run around. And then I was going to use the Celestial Guard with the Smoke Grenade to cover the Ru Shi and move that up one side of the field.
Great,
and move
I like
the
it.
Sujan up the other side of the field, leaving Major Luna in camo state to provide like a defensive ARO with the Viral Sniper. I was going to try and use the Pangolin to do assisted fire, I believe, on the Ru Shi to reduce any cover.
Helps to win the face-to-face rolls, yeah.
Yeah. And the Tiger Soldier was just like a piece of opportunity. So if I could find a weak point to try and exploit, I could put him in that kind of position.
It's a good unit.
The Guilong, just for the mines, to try and like come around corners with the mine and then actually move the piece around the corner to make the opponent choose whether to deal with the mine or with his boarding shotgun.
Right.
And the Dao Ying, he was just generating the extra order and then he gets camo. So I could leave him in the back, like kind of in his own little corner. And then if I needed to use his orders, he had a little bit more mobility and movement. And then being in camo with the boarding shotgun, they're at a minus to try and hit him. And
he's a very safe lieutenant.
Yeah. That was kind of the game plan.
Nice.
With the ninja with the ninja just kind of roaming around trying to kill people.
To be honest,
from the shadows.
The last time I've done the coaching session with people in the community, I mean, the last couple of guys sent me lists which were just like completely all over the place. This one's actually pretty good. I mean, you've taken a lot of the strong pieces that YuJing has to offer. I'll just go through a few points that I've noticed with the list that could work better. First of all, the Dao Ying, its big strength is the Lieutenant +1 order. So there are 2 Lieutenant orders there, but because he's not doing any hacking and he's usually not doing any active turn fighting, the 2 Lieutenant orders aren't going to be useful a lot of the time. However, YuJing obviously has access to NCOs, so if you have either a Hack Tao or a Mo Wang, those 2 models are making the use of those 2 orders. The Dao Ying's still really, really good because it's very hard to assassinate, but you can, in this case, since you're not going to be using the lieutenant orders, it would actually probably be better to downgrade that guy to a different kind of lieutenant to save points, or upgrade him to a different kind of lieutenant who's actually going to be using it during the action. And when I show you my version of this list later, I'll explain that a bit more. So you got the Guilang and Kanran, both excellent units. The way I would usually do it is have it the other way around. So the Kanran would have the mad traps or whatever it is, the mines, etc. Just because in this sort of situation, it's going to be really obvious what's the mine and what's the Guilang anyway, just the way it's deployed. Everybody's really good at figuring that out. I like to make the Kanran, something that's going to help defend your army. The Mad Traps one is one of my favorites. The Killer Hacking one as well, because you can use the Hollow Echo to deploy as, say, a Forward Observer, and in reality he's a Killer Hacker or a normal hacker, which is good. The Guilang Mine Layer, he's excellent, and I don't have any problem with him, except for the fact that I mean, the Guilang Specialist is usually the best kind of Guilang, because it can then place mines. But it's not bad. It's not bad at all. The Tiger Soldier is neat. You've even got the Pangolin there to put a control jump on him. He's a really, really good unit, so no problems with that. The Pangolin Evo, as you said, if you're going to take the Ru Shi, it's great to take the Pangolin anyway. One small thing I noticed, though, is that the Zhanshi Yisheng, it's a doctor, and what you'd be wanting to do with it, obviously, is deploy it right next to Major Luna. So if she goes unconscious, she's going to drop back behind a wall. You can revive her. But the list doesn't have anything that can revive the Sujan or the Ru Shi, even though both of those units have remote presence. So with the Sujian, if you take 2 wounds, you go into NWI. But if you take 3 wounds, it actually goes into NWI level 2, which is kind of crazy. But a Monster Trucker could repair it. So what I would usually do in this situation is either take the Yisheng and the Monster Trucker, but even more frequently I would actually swap the Yisheng for the Monster Trucker, leave Major Luna on her own if she dies, especially since a lot of stuff has shock and can just kill her anyway. I mean, I don't think she's got shock immunity. And you've saved yourself a few points, and the Monstrucker can actually afford a Yao Zhao, so it's got a helper bot instead. So that's a bit more of an efficient list. And with the Suxian being a good attacking beast and aero piece, what you can do is you can have it behind a wall and just using its Panzerfaust for arrows. And when they inevitably gun it down with an HMG, you've got that Monstrucker there to actually repair it, and then it can move out with the Spitfire. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Ninja, solid, everything else is fine. I'm just going to bring up the list that I wrote, which is actually very similar to your list, but you'll sort of see where the differences are. Do you prefer the army code or the link?
The link's fine.
Okay, I'll just jump into Discord and copy-paste this. So does that link work if you click on that and bring up this thing?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The title should be DB for Donny Brooks, and it starts with a Hacktower NCO?
Correct.
Okay, so let's just talk about, and again, this is very similar to your list, which is really cool, because we've both got the same sort of feeling for YuJing. So the Hacktower NCO is primarily there because he's an all-round powerful unit. It's not like, you know, in the first turn of your opponent's turn, they're going to kill him, because he's going to be in hidden deployment or, you know, TO camo behind a wall or something. So you're always going to get some value out of him because it's going to turn over to your turn and you can attack with him. But the real bonus is that when we go down to the YuJing, it's the same model that you took. You know, he's going to have 2 extra orders to really be efficient and useful. He's the kind of model where if your opponent has lost a few aero pieces and doesn't have a lot of hacking or anything, he can even just walk over to the other side of the enemy's board and shoot things, especially in the final turn. And in this context, it's a bit easier to get away with it compared to the Suxian. The Suxian's very, very good. Like, I still recommend taking him in a lot of games, but the Hacktower, he's better at winning face-to-face rolls because of the Mimetism of -6. He's better at avoiding hacking because he's a marker, so you can move and kill something and come back. He's better in close combat. He doesn't really cost much more, and the additional 2 orders is really neat. So this is one of the stronger YuJing lists, in my opinion. Same Celestial Guard and Guangxi, you should always take those. As you can see, I've taken the Long Yars and Mine Layers, and that's to really help against a player like Persian, who you had trouble with first round of the tournament. If you've got 2 of these guys with, you know, camo and a couple of Mine Layers really close to your deployment zone, it's harder for him to move in with the Daylamis and the shotguns and the Fides and things, because they're going to have to dodge these mines, which are close to your deployment zone, and they're going to have to discover the Long Yars before they can shoot them. Long Yar's only worth 17 points. Got the SMG, so you might occasionally get lucky and shoot down somebody who's in your deployment zone. As you can see, I've taken the Guilang Fort Observer. Its only job is really midfield presence. You can lay mines if you've got nothing better to do, so it becomes like a mine layer. And collecting the objectives is quite reliable out in the midfield. These Guilangs are way better these days because of MSV1, which is buffed. But boarding shotguns don't benefit from MSV1 very much. A combi rifle does. So that's why I really like this profile. I've taken Major Luna just like you have, but she's unsupported by a doctor. I'm kind of okay with that. Then if we go to Group 2, the TR bot. Again, this is a very defensive long-range list, but it's also very useful when you're attacking. If your opponent has something really nasty that if it crits, it's going to kill your Hacktower, you could try using the HMG instead. So if the Hacktower's up against, I don't know, like a Grenza missile launcher with MSV1, and he's just trying to destroy it from long range, sometimes the TR bot can be better because you can repair it if it gets hit by a crit and just keep trying, whereas the Hacktower could be wiped off the board if it takes 3 wounds. But still, I mean, the TR bot there is there because it's cheap. It's defensive as well as offensive. I've taken the Ninja for the same reason you did. It's really good to have something midfield, which is a close combat expert, and these guys also can identify the enemy hacking and kill it before it presents a threat to the Hacktower. I'm a big fan of jammers still from N3, but you can get rid of this Tiango and play him as something else. I mean, you could take the Pangolin instead, but again, like you said, you had trouble with like people coming into deployment zones with boarding shotguns and just causing too much trouble. The Tiango is really good against that because of A, the jammer, and B, the boarding shotgun. And you can also deploy him as something which could potentially be a lieutenant. So if you just hollow echo him as a single plane Zhanshi, your opponent might go, okay, that camo marker over there might be Major Luna, and then the camo marker, which is actually a Dao Ying, maybe that's a mine or something. And then the Zhanshi is clearly the lieutenant, so they bring out their Fide and they try and assassinate him, and they don't kill your lieutenant, and you get to jam them in the process. That's a really good trade for you. So even if you're going second, it gives you the chance to slow them down with your long yarn mine layers. You've got hidden deployment, TR bot, a jammer, and then it becomes your turn, and you've still got a lot of material. And of course, the Monstrucker, very useful, with the Yao Zhao being able to revive not just the long yars, but the TR bot as well. Alright, now there's one more thing that this list actually does quite well that you might not be aware of, and that's the coordinated order. Have you been using a lot of coordinated orders in your games?
So Tyrell was the first person to even bring that to my attention.
Right.
And I used it a little bit with him, and then I used it a little bit in a practice game against Grave Robins a couple days ago. So I've used it a little bit, but I'm not super good with it.
Okay. So I want you to imagine that you're taking the first turn, and your opponent has some really nasty aero piece in a link team on the other side of the board, and it's an open table, and that piece can see a lot of your stuff if it moves out. So we're thinking Knight of Justice missile launcher in a link team with BS-17, 2 shots, armor 5, or maybe it's a Kamau, the new Kahu Feuerbach. So this is a guy who's got MSV1, Mimetism, a Feuerbach, all of that stuff. Or maybe it's a Kamau sniper with MSV2, and it's got the sniper there and it's Mimetism. Or maybe the new Bolt sniper with marksmanship or a Grenzer. All of these things present a problem, and if you attack it with a Hack Tower or a Sujian, you might just lose the face-to-face roll and have to revive your guy. Here's what you can try. You spend 1 order from Group 1 and a command token and declare a coordinated order, and you select 4 things: the Hack Tower, the 2 Long Yars, and Major Luna. Each of those things moves out from total cover, and they retain partial cover, but they move from not being seen to then getting line of sight to that enemy piece. Then your opponent gets an arrow. That person can only shoot one of those 4 targets. The other 3 things get a free shot. So your enemy might go, okay, the Hack Tower's the most dangerous, and again, you nominate your Hack Tower as a spearhead. He's half burst, but still 2 shots out of 4 for the HMG. Surprise attack, still good. And Mimetism -6. So then you roll your 2 shots from the Hack Tower against the enemy's thing. The Hack Tower may take some damage, that's fine. But then you roll 1 Panzerfaust from the Long Yar, 1 Panzerfaust from the other Long Yar, and a Viral Sniper from Major Luna, and that's 3 free shots. And more than likely, that piece they just put there is just going to get crushed, and then you can move out and do other things with your turn. Do you sort of see how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be a really handy tactic, which is possible because of the setup of this list, which is nice. Cool.
So in AROs, do you have to take your entire arrow against a single opponent, or can it be any of the? It's like any example you gave. He has to stick with that one unit for his arrow. He can't divide it up.
Correct. An arrow has to nominate a single target.
Okay.
In that specific example, unless your Hack Tower had previously revealed and the Long Yars had as well, what your opponent would actually do is declare a delay. In which case you fire twice with a Hack Tower, Panzerfaust with each of the Long Yars, or maybe a Flamen Spear if they've got targets nearby and you can hit in the template, which is even better. And then your Viral Sniper with Major Luna, and your opponent can choose which of those 4 models that he responds to. But it's still problematic. I mean, if he responds to one of the Long Yars, well, big deal. You're 17 points, your Monster Trucker revives it. You're winning. If it's Major Luna, well, sure. I mean, you've swapped Major Luna for their most important piece. Now you're free to move over to their side of the table with something that can attack. So it's a powerful tactic. You've just got to keep it in mind during your deployment, and it can be awkward if you can't get everything to move in a way that it can see the enemy thing, but on very open tables it's quite easy to do. It's also possible for things that have camouflage to recamouflage them all. So I know that Major Luna has limited use, but you can also spend a coordinated order and return the Hack Tower and the Long Yars back into camo state, which can actually be very useful once you've done the business and destroyed what you need to, and you're continuing on in the game. Cool.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so I'm just going to go into TTS. Have you got TTS loaded up?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to create a game, and I'm going to call it VaulSC, and the password will just be gaming, and I'll let you know once it's up and running. I've just made a little simulation here. Let's go autosave. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be practicing a bit about deployment, and I'll get you... so I'm in the game now, so if you just want to come in here, and I'm just going to pick the blue side, and I'll take blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to simulate a situation where we're playing the mission Oblique Assault, which is going to be obviously the final round for the previous event we just played. I'm playing OSS, and I've won the role, and I've, for whatever reason, decided I'm going to take deployment. So I'm on the blue side, and I'm going to make... in fact, I'm going to deploy first. Actually, no, forget it. Let's simulate something else. Let's pretend that that I won the role and I chose first, and for whatever reason you've chosen the red side and made me deploy first. And what I've done now is I've deployed everything except my reserve troopers. Now, normally you wouldn't know this, but I've got my Lieutenant Shukra, that's one of the reserve troopers, and I've got the 3 posthumans, that's the other reserve deployment. So usually you're going to know that it's going to be something like this coming in later. But for now, I've got a net rod on the side here. There's a flash pulse spot here and another one on the other side. They are there so that I can actually have repeater range to put assisted fire onto my Dakini TAC bots. Pavati's in the team. We've got the CSU, the HMG, and the Dakini's there. I've got too many people for the link team, so this model back here behind the billboard is not part of the team, but if something dies, he can be added to it to reform it. So importantly, this sniper here is a very powerful sniper. It's got mimetism, effectively BS14 in the link, and it can see right through this area here, this region here, but also right down the street, like through there. So that's one thing that's defending my position right now. There's this flash bot which can sort of see through the gap there a little bit, and it's placed there to put assisted fire into my guy. And then out in the midfield, there's a piece here you don't know about. I will tell you what it is, though. It's a DASU Fort Observer, but we're going to pretend that you don't know it. Normally, it would be in hidden deployment there, and I would be moving it down the street towards the central objective at the end of the game. But it can also be there to do some fighting by moving out on top of the building. On the extreme left-hand side, you can probably guess what this is. There's a marker that's prone and a marker that's not prone very close by. So you'd be right if you guessed it's a mine layer, so boarding shotgun, similar to what you were taking in your list. Pangolin, of course, using that to put assisted fire on the Dakinis, which is very, very useful. So if we go around to your side of the table now, I'm going to pick out a bag which I made for you, which actually is your list rather than my list. And what we'll do now is we'll bring everything out. So first thing I want you to think of is that within your list that you wrote for me there, what model do you think would be your reserve trooper?
With the list that I wrote, I was planning on keeping either the Sujan or the Rushi as my reserve trooper,
right,
to see how you deployed and see where I needed to put that piece to try and like counteract your like link team or where you had a heavier presence at.
Got it. I think that for you, the better choice would be the Sujian because OSS is taking the first turn. The reason I say that is because you want to look for anything in the enemy army that's going to be used during the first turn to do some attacking. So far, we've seen a bunch of things which aren't really that threatening. It's going to take a long time for them to move from this side of the board to your side of the board and do damage. So given that, you may as well just wait to see if like the reserve trooper happens to be not, you know, a Shukra, but like Andromeda or something interesting like that. And then you can deploy the Sujian in a way that you can use its Panzerfaust or Flamer or something at a distance to stop that. So let's put the Sujian as the reserve trooper. Let's go through everybody else now. What would you be... Let's just pick something that you want to deploy, and we'll go through it one by one.
So generally I start out with my Guangxi and like all my impetuous people.
All right, let's take
I
the 4 Guangxi models, and I want you to right now find an appropriate place for them to start, given that you're going second.
So generally, I would put one like over here, looking through this doorway.
Yep, you grab the model and you put it there, and we'll talk about its facing and its exact position and make sure it's correct. Okay.
I always tend to put them in some kind of cover, even though they don't get cover.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, with this guy, let's talk about him. I agree with you about the cover comment. If you put him specifically there, I want you to bear in mind the range of his chain rifle is like that. So 10.5. And that's something you need to be aware of, because if I come over there with my dakinis and it's beyond that distance, well, then he's only got his pistol. So an improvement that I'd like you to do in your games is to bring him here and place him like that. And that way, the only way to get line of sight to him is to come through the door. And then once they get to that point, they're clearly within chain rifle range. You also want to bring out a prone marker. We'll copy that and make him prone. Reason being is that the little clipped off corner of this wall, he might actually be visible past that if you're not careful. Especially against things that have got super jump and climbing plus on the other side. So if he's there, he's really defending this entire area, which is great. It's going to be hard to get through him because of the dogged, and the chain rifle is just beautifully positioned in that point, yeah?
Awesome.
All right, let's go to the next guy.
I'd probably end up putting one over on... No. I'd be tempted to put someone over in this region.
Don't forget, you're going second, so you don't want to give them away for free. They're going to need to be somewhere where they've got a little bit of protection.
Actually, no.
One thing I want you to think about is that you do have a couple of other models which are going to be useful for defending this sort of midfield region. You've got your Kanrin, you've got your Guilang mine layer, things like that. What you don't want is for me to deploy a reserve trooper that walks out to here and again hits that Guangxi from long range. Again, he's there for defense and he's expendable, but you don't really want to lose the regular order that he's going to provide for the rest of the game. What about something like this? If there's a staircase there, and he stands there, then we're basically employing the same solution that we did before. And if we copy this prone marker, to see him, they've got to get to this point here, right? If they are trying to shoot him from here, they just can't see that spot in the stairs. But again, that chain rifle has enough distance to reach the side of the board, so they can't get to a point where they'd see him before hitting his chain rifle. And the amount of effort it would take to come all the way around here and get to him anyway is pretty rough. But then when it's your turn, he can quite easily use his impetuous to 2 inches out here, and then the other 6 inches from the 2 inches and the other 4 inches gets him here, and he can start screaming up the board, detonate the mine up there. He becomes very useful because you haven't lost him. So that's a great spot for him right there, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's try another one.
This one I would probably put like over here. And then he'd be prone to try and watch over.
Are you happy with his facing?
Yeah, because he's just trying to watch over this way.
Okay. This is actually pretty decent. Again, if something moves up to this point, they're going to get him over the chain rifle range just. So you just got to be very wary of these ranges. And when you're practicing deployment on a new map, if you know the map beforehand, just actually get out your ruler and go, okay, can they see him, and just force them to take a dodge or a pistol. And in this case, they can. It's fine, though, because to get something there, that's a lot of effort for your opponent. What I will point out, though, is that his facing is not great. If I move a model here, chances are I can see his base over top of this wall once I get close enough. And all he can really do is dodge change facing, and they're just going to shoot him in the back, possibly with a shock weapon. If you move like this, that's a bit better, because then that move is not possible. And although he can't really see behind him, you're going to have other things in your deployment zone which can watch his back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Cool, but I mean, otherwise that deployment's pretty solid. Alright, so we've got one more guy.
Probably do this guy. I don't know, put like on these stairs, prone if possible.
Oh yeah. All right, so you put him there?
Yeah.
Nice. So that's not bad. That's actually a pretty good spot for him, and I do like that he's going to be able to sort of move through the middle of the table effectively, and as he uses Impetuous to come out to here, then you might be able to move them into cover here, and then in the final turn of the game, you can actually make them very useful out in the midfield when they're trying to capture that objective. So that's really cool. We were talking about coordinated orders earlier, and one tactic you need to know how to use as a YuJing player is involving the Guangxi in your coordinated orders. So imagine you're going to be moving the Rushi or the Haktao or something like that, or the Sujian into their side of the table. What you can do is you can spend a coordinated order if you're going to be just moving and not doing any shooting to move the Rushi plus the 3 Guangxis. In fact, let me just look at your list because they have to be in the same group. That's important.
Yeah, the Rushi's in the same group as them.
Excellent, okay. So what that means is that after you've used your Impetuous move, you don't have to spend any more orders on them getting into cover, because you can bring them along with one of the moves that the Rushi takes. So if this guy does Impetuous out to here, and this guy's Impetuous out to here, then when you do a coordinated order, the Rushi just moves into position with 2 short skill moves, and these guys go and hide again so that they can't be killed easily when it flips back to your opponent's turn. With this guy's deployment, do be wary of the fact that there's still a reserve trooper coming. If I'm deploying my post-Jimment and I just put this rocket launcher like right here, it's going to mean that as soon as you stand up, you get shot. But thanks to the leniency of the new Impetuous rules, you could always choose not to Impetuous, so it's not that bad. So I think we can happily leave him there. Just don't be afraid though to have a Guangxi just sitting right at the back, not doing any defending and just providing an order, or like back here. I mean there's nothing wrong with that. But the positions you've got them at the moment is really solid. I mean, it's not disadvantageous at all. And like we were talking about earlier, up against Hakaslam, for example, if they are hitting you with Daylamis, hopefully you're going to be swapping a Guangxi for a Daylami, and that's a really good trade. Okay, so who's the next person you want to try and have a crack at deploying from this list?
So next I would usually do my Rushi, figure out where I'm going to put him at,
all right,
in combination with my Celestial Guard. Okay,
let's figure it out. Where do you think they should go?
So from this side, I would probably try and get the Rushi to go down my right-hand side.
Oh, yep.
Your left-hand side, just to utilize that Spitfire some.
The Rushi may have difficulty with the mine, for example, so trying to fit him through this gap, that could be annoying. Coming through this middle side, probably not that great, because the Rushi's not going to be able to beat that sniper very easily, because you'd have to get within 24 inches. This side over here looks kind of promising, because the sniper's not covering that, and then once you get into range over here, you might be able to start seeing some of the Dakinis and things. So that's a possibility.
Okay.
We still haven't seen their reserve troopers, but he doesn't have to. The thing is, he doesn't have to be useful the first turn. Even if you did nothing with him for turn 1 and he survived, then he became useful later in the game. That's still pretty good.
Probably put him over here, right behind the Guangxi.
Yep. Great. One thing I like about this is that, again, he can go prone as well if he wants to. And he also has a repeater. Your opponent doesn't know what hackers you have and don't have. So if your opponent's moving through here and dealing with a Guangxi or bringing on a drop trooper, they don't know if your Dao Ying's actually a hacking guy. I mean, we know that he's not, but they don't. Also, you've got a ninja killer hacker which can come out and use the repeater, so I kind of like that. And we did say for the event that you're allowed to fit through this door with most silhouettes, so he's going to be able to sneak through there and do quite well. Great. Yeah, next.
So I do the Celestial Guard. He'd probably come over. So I would try and keep him close to the Rushi just to utilize that smoke.
Yeah, great idea.
For him.
I like that. And he can fire the smoke down this alleyway here, or he can even stand up and hit them into the center. As long as it doesn't get shot. So that's a great idea. Again, make sure his facing is like towards the enemy deployment zone, because you don't want somebody appearing back here and then hitting him in the back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll just fix that for us. So that's pretty good. Nice.
The Conren, I would generally use the full 8 inches or try to get into the midfield.
Yep. He's a forward observer, so he's going to be one of the units that will potentially hold on to one of the objectives at the end of this mission. And so that matters. And also specialist kills generate points. So whichever one is the real Kanren does need to be somewhere safe. Remember, OSS is taking the first turn. You don't want him to get just killed. So make sure the real one is in a position where it's actually quite hard to get to him. If you wanted to, you could even holo project him as something, which can occasionally throw your opponent off. For example, you made him like a Pheasant rank Red Fury chain of command. That's a common unit. We can make him, like I said, a basic Zanshi, for example. Most of the time, though, it is best to just put the 3 holo echoes out and just pretend that he's a different kind of Kanren.
Yeah, because every time I've tried to use the Conren for like full sneakiness against like Grave Robins.
Yep.
He just, as I'm going through my list, he composes it on the Infinity website.
Yep.
So as soon as he sees whatever unit I've holo echoed, immediately he's like, "Oh, that's not who that is. That's the Conren," because the points don't add up.
Yep.
So I've never found it to be super beneficial.
Here's a tip with Kanrens. So what I want you to do with them is have at least 2 of them in positions where they could conceivably be to make sense. So if this guy's up here, that means that he's in range to walk down the stairs and go for this objective or that objective. He's very difficult to kill, and he's a specialist, and that matters. And your opponent's going to be thinking about that. So they're going to go, okay, it's probably this guy. I don't have to worry about him. On the other hand, this guy can go over here. Remember, you're not actually allowed to deploy troopers touching the objectives. But if he's back here, it's very hard to see him. And if he turns out to be the real guy, I think he's got like a chain cold anyway. So they have to be at least a little bit careful. But then I'd put the last one behind, because some opponent's going to go, oh, okay, well, this guy's the one who's most protected. So it's probably going to be the guy who doesn't have to walk down the stairs. He's just going to be able to safely move out. But in reality, like, this is the real one, for example. But the other thing is they have to be in coherency, so if you put this guy way over here, then it just telegraphs to your opponent it's the middle guy, because then the one from this side can't be in range of this one. I think that's how the rules work for it.
So I thought for holo projection, as long as each model was within coherency of another one of the projections.
Yeah, you might be right, actually.
That's the only reason I ever deploy them so far apart, is so that someone couldn't come by with, like, a boarding shotgun and just get multiple people in one blast real quick.
Yeah, if this is in range, then maybe it is a good spot for it. It's just I'm concerned about the 8-inch coherency, that's all. Anyway, this spot is perfectly fine.
The ninja, I would generally put somewhere like over here to where they could easily access the center console.
Exactly. You need to be thinking about, is there anything in my opponent's list that has sensor? And as we look over to the other side, there is nothing. Is it likely that there's going to be anything in the reserves that's going to have sensor? If you didn't know that it was this stuff, you could still probably deduce that, well, they're going to need a lieutenant. The lieutenant's almost always the Shukra. So there's that. And then posthumans are in every OSS list, so it's probably going to be the posthumans. And if your opponent's told you they're using Strategos, you know that they're not going to be deploying a Diva. It's always going to be the Shukra or like a Marut. So you could quite comfortably put your ninja in hidden deployment like here. Meaning that since you got the last turn of the game, all you need to do is just reveal him and touch the base of the objective, or you could even just walk around it and attack in close combat against the specialist that your opponent has put there, which is a massive swing. So let's just pretend that the ninja is around here. This spot here is not bad because you're touching cover, and if you're really desperate to stop somebody, you could tactical bow or dodge into close combat through the center of the table. So I think that's a safe gamble. I mean, if your opponent suddenly deploys like a Deva with sensor, then you're in trouble because you'd lose him, but it's not the end of the world, and it's very unlikely they'd be doing that. Okay, what's next?
The Pangolin would just be kind of like up here, hanging out in a prone state to where he can do his hacking stuff, but not be an easy target.
Yeah, I like to put them further towards the edge of the wall like that, just because if your opponent has stuff with climbing plus or super jump and it comes out here, you wouldn't want them to be able to see just the back of the base when it's way at the back of that building. So try and deploy closer to the wall that's nearer to your opponent's deployment zone to ensure that they have the maximum difficulty getting to the back of his base, because once they've done that, it becomes really... I mean, you're going to die. But luckily, I mean, even if they climb to the top of this billboard here, they're still barely able to see your base. So it's not likely you'll lose him. And yeah, he is in a really good position there. And the Rushi's got its own repeater, so that's how that's going to go. Brilliant. Okay, who's next?
Major Luna would generally go somewhere. I put her like up here, faced kind of like that, so she can see down over this way, across the midfield, kind of down here, and then as well back here a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the spot is excellent because the sniper can't try and discover you and shoot you. And like you said, there are some very long lanes for her. The only weakness of this spot is that if you're attacking something around this part of the field, they may get you in the underneath the 16-inch range. But yeah, it's less likely. I mean, if we measure it out, yeah, if they come up behind this building specifically, then you're in a little bit of trouble. But she's covering so much other stuff, and she's even able to see down to this objective, which I find is really, really good. And from that range, it's going to be a good range as well. So yeah, we should leave her there. That's an excellent spot for her. Systematically, though, once she's deployed, let's put the YuJing near to her, because the YuJing's not going to be useful at reviving anything else. Just make sure you don't put the YuJing too close to her, because if she's revealed and hit by a template, you don't want to lose the doctor. Luckily, I think she's going to be well out there.
So him out generally face towards the stairs in the opposite direction, because he's going to be prone the whole time.
Yeah.
So if someone was able to get up behind, they're not going to get up the stairs.
Yeah.
Completely unopposed.
This is a nice spot also because you could potentially stand up and fire the medikit at somebody later in the game. She's also a specialist, so she could technically climb down this ladder and walk towards this objective later in the game. Don't forget about that. If your opponent's just fully committed to everything else and just hasn't covered that part of the board and you've got the last turn, you might be able to win by rocking her up at the end if everything else has gone badly for you and you've lost a lot of troops. So that's good. Okay, we got anybody else?
So the Mine Layer and the YuJing, Mine Layer, he would just, I don't know, he'd hang out in the back somewhere for this first turn.
Well, surely you want the mine to be
deployed
infiltration.
In the field. Yeah. I didn't see that he had infiltration, which is my half of the board, right?
Yeah. So that's the real value of this unit, is you can put them anywhere right up to the half of the board here, and that's good because the mine can go all the way up to the middle of the table, but he doesn't have to. So you can put them in a place that's really safe, and then put the mine out there, or you can put them both in positions where they can potentially use their template weapons. One school of thought is that you need to find somewhere where they can both stand up, so your opponent doesn't even know for sure which one is the Guilang and which one's the mine. But I mean, the advantage of tricking your opponent is just not enough of an advantage to make it really worth it. So like, one thing you could do, for example, is you could try this, where he's here and the mine's here. So with the mine going there behind the car, your opponent's going to figure out it's a mine, so they're not going to bother discovering it in a lot of cases. And if he's here, I mean, if your opponent knows for sure what it is, you could always make it prone as well. But then at least the boarding shotgun's covering this really tight corner. So when they move their Dakini Link team up to here, you could just do nothing, or you could reveal with the boarding shotgun or lay another mine. And this one, it's just an annoying thing where your opponent's going to have to spend at least one order removing it, and they may fail to discover it, and they're going to have to deal with it at some point during the game because it's nicely covering this middle objective, if that makes sense, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one place to put it, but I also like what you're doing up here as well. If you want to make sure you don't lose the Guilang, putting them up here and then having the mine on ground level is also really solid, prevents them coming through this range. But I mean, Major Luna's holding that area quite well, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I would have just... The only reason I was considering over here is because he has that 8 inches for the mine.
Yeah.
It's going to cover the backside of this building, which is where Major Luna has her
issue. Yeah, I was just about to say that. That's quite a good idea. Then you either keep the Guilang safe on the top level, or you, again, bring him down somewhere that he could be handy. Like, even something like this might be good. Because then you don't have to make him prone, and he should still be within range of the mine. So there'll be some people who are wondering whether you're being really sneaky and actually keeping the mine back and having the Guilang further up. Most people won't be like that, but it's a possibility, and that's quite easily within range to deploy. So yeah, that's a really good setup for him. Good job.
And then my lieutenant is just going to be somewhere in the back creeping around until either probably over here, not out there in the open, just kind of hanging out.
Yep.
And then I don't think he can activate the console, but
no.
And then my Sujan is my reserve, and the Tiger Soldier, he'd be hidden until I decided to drop him in.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'll do on my side of the board really quickly is I'll first of all find a spot for my lieutenant. So I'm just going to put him prone behind this this seat, and because everything else nearby to him is going to be quite defensive. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rocket launcher on top of a building somewhere, just because I want you to want to force you. Now, as the player on this side, I've just seen you deploying a cover marker, so I suspect this is Major Luna, so I don't want to get shot at by Major Luna. So what I do is I just put the HRL on top of this. Even though it's going to get outranged by a lot of stuff, he's just so resilient that becomes a problem for you. And then because I'm going first, I'm going to be using my proxy. Let me just check if he's got forward deployment to come after you. Plus 4 inches, yeah. So the side of the table that I'm seeing is a little bit weaker, is maybe the middle, actually. Because this side's pretty good for you. So this guy's maybe going to go up and do some attacking. Or the Dazu is, so I'll just chuck him here. And he can run through the midfield, go prone. So I'll spend a lot of orders on him turn 1. And the proxy hacker, I believe, has infiltration. So I'm going to be using this model to grab objectives at the end, which is why it's going to stand up here, halfway down. And I also know that you've got a Sujian, so I'll deploy... Well, I don't know that you've got a Sujian, but you might have one. This is also effective against the Rushi. You've deployed your Ninja and hidden deployment, so I don't know that you can attack me with Trinity, so that might be something that benefits you, but this model here is going to stay there until it's needed, or is able to go out and grab the objective. So Having seen me put those models on the board, where would you want to be putting the Sujan?
If you put that one there, and then your rocket launcher up there, I would either try and take and put him somewhere in the midfield, or over here off to the right.
Yeah, remember, it's me going first, so make sure he's not going to be somewhere where I can just gun him down.
Yeah.
Yep. And he has to go in your deployment zone.
I'd probably start him in his combat form.
Yeah, you need to for the ballistic skill.
Like this. So that he can watch down here, and then he can also see over to here.
Okay.
Is kind of what I'd be thinking.
It's not bad, because what he can do is he can use his guts check to move over to this point if I shoot at him through here. And if he's being shot at through this alleyway, I mean, he may just be too fat to avoid enemy troopers. What I'd be worried about is if first turn the Dakini Link team picks up, moves all the way down the street, somebody detonates the mine or whatever, and we kill Major Luna, and then if the HMG is here, you may find yourself in a position where Major Luna's been shot and the mine's detonated, and then the HMG is just firing at your Sujian round after round after round, and they will beat you with assisted fire. So he just doesn't have anywhere really good to retreat to. What I'm thinking of is either this, standing like that, because if he gets shot, he just goes prone behind the wall and he's fine, and he's got a Panzerfaust to take care of this massive long lane here, which is great. Or put him on a building somewhere and take advantage of his climbing plus. So if he's standing there and stays prone, well, you've seen all of the OSS stuff already. There's really nothing that threatening, and if you know your opponent's not going to be just charging head first at you, you don't necessarily need his AROs, because you're so well defended with your Guangxi and Major Luna anyway that if this guy just goes prone there, then when it's your turn, you go cat form and you move out. Although having said that, there's the heavy rocket launcher looking at you, so this side of the table might again be better, but it's just important to have a place to retreat to if you get hit. So back behind this is okay too. Like if you stand him there, he can see along that line, and then he can sort of duck back behind this. And because he's so fast, he's going to be able to move out and get into the midfield and attack anyway. I guess coming up this side of the table is not ideal if there's going to be a sniper there, because he definitely can't beat that sniper so easily.
No, so what I was thinking, I'm just checking the ranges on the Spitfire.
Yeah.
Is if he was behind this car back here, he can cover that down the lane towards the objective marker to assist Major Luna with defending. And then on my turn, he goes cat form, and he's getting
quickly
big movement.
Good thing too is that he's taller than that car, so he can vault over it as combat form too if he wants to go up the center. And yeah, he should easily be able to avoid the sniper. There's a point here where that enemy rocket launcher can see him, but you could also use that cautious move we were talking about earlier to cross this, provided the Naga's been dealt with. But yeah, I think that spot's not bad at all. Again, there's no real need to be defending this side of the table that urgently. The Kanran is there after all, so this is actually a pretty nice spot for our Sujian to start off with, and it's very unlikely that we'll lose him. Cool. Yeah. Any general thoughts about deployment?
It always seems more complex every time I go through it.
Yep.
like every place I put someone, you had pointers on like how to better it, because I never would have thought of keeping the Guangxi in cover without getting that cover bonus to force the chain rifle range.
Yeah.
I would have just put him on the corner here where he can see this whole lane, but that does expose him a lot.
Yeah. There are so many things in this game which are, number one, going to beat him in face-to-face rolls, but number two, have shock ammunition and remove him. And even though he's only worth 5 points in terms of your list, they're undercosted. They contribute so much more to your ability to win than just the 5 points. There's the regular order and there's their ability to fight, so you don't want to throw them away. They're actually some of the better things in your army. So you have to be somewhat conservative with them, and your chances of winning the game are so much higher if in the final turn, when it's pretty much desperate, unit against unit in the midfield, if you've got some sort of Guangxi lying around, they've got to spend an extra couple of orders removing, or if they're so unlucky that you get a free pistol hit and you crit them or something, it's you've been given that opportunity because you played them so well at the start of the game, if that makes sense. Yeah, man. Anything in the YuJing faction that you're not sure about how to use, that you're wondering whether to put in your list or not?
For vanilla, not really. I mean, I wanted to do the Wu Ming, Harris fire team, but you can't use fire teams vanilla.
Yeah.
And I used to do Imperial Service before in N3.
Same.
When you could take the 8 Guangxi. And I kind of got away from Imperial Service because they capped off the unit count.
Yeah, they've been very nerfed.
And I'm actually doing another tournament starting this next week, and I'm trying out White Company.
Cool.
The YuJing Pano kind of group.
For me, I have struggled to come up with any White Company list other than just this one variation. But I'll just briefly share it with you, and then we better wrap up because we've just been going for over an hour, and I just got some stuff to do soon. But if I just load up my most recent White Company list, for me, the most important thing here is the Orc HMG and the Hideout Multi-Sniper in a cheap Link team that has the Fusiliers, also with Valeria Gromos, so she can fire her pitches long range. And then I've got the Guilang Hackers out in the midfield because they synergize with her pitches, and then I take the Missile Launcher bot as well. Then you have the Varangians, CSUs. I've even got Shona Carano in there. Generally, those are the kinds of units which are very, very good in that sectorial. You can try a bit with the Danaves and the Nokins and so forth, but the Kahu, lots of really good units that can't be in a Link team, so I don't usually take it. The Nis as well, similarly, can't join a Link team, although it's an extremely good unit. I don't take it as often. But you've got to have that Orc HMG in my view, and the Hideout Multi-Sniper and Link team's too good to pass up.
So one of the lists that I submitted for this tournament, it's the Hideout Fusilier Link team, and then it's the Orc with the Führerbach,
nice.
The Jujak,
he's also very
boarding
good,
shotgun, and the Hideout Killer Hacker with the Danavas Hacker. And then one of the Fusiliers is also a hacker.
Cool.
I took 2 of the Peacemakers, a Bulleteer, and a Mulebot. So I just flood the midfield with repeaters. And then my hope is that I can use the Fusilier hacker and his 6th Sense if anything goes into that network. And then as soon as they try and reset, the Danavas and the Hideout also get the ARO off of that.
Yeah, I feel you. The Fusilier hacker is okay. But you remember he's got the lowest possible willpower. Doesn't have any BGS and he doesn't have any upgrades as well. So my thinking was if he's in the Link team, he'll get that 6th Sense. Sure.
Which then forces any stealth unit to either reset against him or to take his hacking unopposed.
Yep. I mean, don't forget that Valeria Gromos can join the Link team as well because she's a wild card.
Yeah.
And at least with her, you've got the pitcher and you've got +1 burst on total control. Willpower 14 is the real thing there. I mean, if you're going to be doing a lot of hacking, it's just better to have that 14 rather than the 12 on the Fusilier. But let me know how you go with them. There's definitely a lot of opportunity for trying stuff out in this sectorial. But yeah, no, it's been a pretty good coaching session actually. I reckon that your understanding of the games is good enough that next time we do another league, you're bound to win a few games going through. So hopefully you do, and keep me posted about how you go with the next tournament.
Oh, will do. I appreciate the help.
Thanks, man. All right, well you have a great day, and I'll head off now. See you later.
Yep. Have a good one, Vol.
See ya.